afternoon from Los Angeles and welcome to Stock Market Today and happy Friday. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two chip stocks that are standing out while that sector took a really hard hit today. And we're also taking a look at a big cap tech stock setting up ahead of its quarterly report next week. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. It's Alyssa Corum here with Ken Shreve. And Ken, we finally saw a relatively big down day today across the board. The Nasdaq, S&P 500, and Dow finishing down about, the S&P and Nasdaq down about 0.9%, the Dow down about 0.6%, the Russell 2000 getting hit really hard today. But if you look at the big picture here, we are just seeing a test of the 10-day line right now for the Nasdaq.
Yeah, I mean, it's the market has been on such a strong uptrend since basically early October. We get finally some pretty stiff selling in the broad market today, and you see the Nasdaq is basically just testing the 10-day moving average, which is a very short-term support level. Still a big pocket above its 50-day moving average. So I think at this point, the Nasdaq is probably going to have to pull back some 5-6% to get down all the way to its 50-day moving average. So it was not a great session for stocks today. Everybody's been kind of expecting a pullback to some degree. Chip stocks very weak today. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index was up 1.5% intraday. That reversed lower for a loss of more than 1%. But we did have a couple of bright spots in the chip sector.
Yes, even though that sector selling off today, as you mentioned, Ken, Intel rising nicely today, gaining over 8% in heavy volume after issuing its quarterly report. Also getting bullish guidance here, but the strongest earnings growth at 19% since the December before, and big move here today for the stock.
Yeah, big earnings beat, big sales beat. The guidance for the current quarter was pretty strong, but Intel was interesting. They were talking about still a lot of competition out there, really advanced micro devices, which has been a very solid performer on leaderboard. That did not have a good day today, but they've really been eating Intel's lunch in terms of server chips. They've been gaining market share. So you had a good earnings report from Intel, pretty good guidance for the first quarter, but again, talking about increasing competition. They also said some of their cloud customers in the second half of the year might slow down their spending. Still, the stock had a great day today, and again, a pretty impressive performance considering the selling in the chip sector was pretty overwhelming.
And that was a look at the weekly chart here, and you can see that relative strength line starting to perk up. It looks like it could be edging into new highs, nearing where it was in about June of 2018 with today's rise. And we do like playing stocks on earnings, and it was nice to see Intel closing the day near the top of its range.
Yeah, this is a stock that it tried to break out over a 59.23 buy point. It did earlier this week. It topped an alternate entry of 61.07, so it's probably a little bit extended right now, but give Intel credit for a really nice quarter.
That's right. And elsewhere in the chip space, we're keeping tabs on Broadcom, ticker ABGO. That stock gaining about 1.4% today in heavy trade. This is a weekly chart here. Looking at the daily, though, it did come well off of its intraday highs, but the stock still posting a decent gain, moving today on news outlet yesterday of $15+ billion in contracts with Apple.
Yes, and this is a slightly different chart than Intel, because Intel's, like I said, probably a little bit extended and too late to buy, but Broadcom, I would say, is still in range here. The weekly chart kind of smooths out to, the daily chart of Broadcom, it gapped up and it closed near its low today, but the weekly chart is still looking pretty strong here. So a nice contract with Apple to supply wireless chips. Last year, Apple made up about 20% of Broadcom's total revenue, so Apple is a big customer, but nice deal for Broadcom announced before the open.
Yeah, that's right, and there's a look at a daily chart for you there. And last but not least, let's check in on Amazon, which is set to issue its quarterly report next week. It is working on a base here. That stock did finish down about 1.2% for the day, but it is still holding within that handle. schedule.
Yeah, next week is going to be the busiest week yet of earnings. We've got FANG stocks like Amazon, we've got Apple, we've got Facebook, PayPal we talked about in the earnings preview column as a possible call option trade. That's acting well. But it's going to be interesting to see how the market responds after today, what looks to be a distribution day for the Nasdaq, some institutional selling in the market today. Very pivotal week of earnings. So Amazon is in a cup with handle base here. This is a look at the daily chart, and it's sitting just below 1917.92 buy point.
Yeah, that's right. It's about 3% below that level now with today's drop. But would this potentially be an options play? I know you're looking at a couple of different ones in this week's earnings preview column.
There are option traders that are betting on a bullish quarter for Intel. It's a little trickier with high-priced stocks. I mean, this is just saying the buy point was a mouthful. $1,917.92. So, to take 100 share, one contract is 100 shares in the option market. You multiply 100 times 1,917. That's you need a pretty big portfolio to do an option trade for Amazon. But there are a lot of big portfolios out there. So it's a candidate because it's near a buy point, and it's definitely a breakout candidate. But like I said, next week's going to be very pivotal for the market. A lot of high-profile earnings reports, and we'll see.
Yeah, and if not the option, maybe we'll just see how it reacts to the report. Although fellow FANG name Netflix had an interesting week post-earnings with it not looking too good day of, but really rebounding yesterday and today.
Yeah, we mentioned Netflix on the show yesterday because it was sort of a kind of a lukewarm response to earnings, but a very impressive move for the stock today, and actually a little bit of follow-through today. So Netflix is still looking very strong here. Regarding Amazon, this is pretty straightforward. I mean, if you do get a gap above the entry point, as many people would say, the stock is actionable on the gap up.
Well, the conversation on stocks that could be set to move on their earnings reports next week, make sure you're checking out IBD Live. And for more information on that, you can go to investors.com/IBD Live, and you can trade live with our professional team of market experts, really giving you those in-depth insights. And as you mentioned, Ken, next week's going to be a very pivotal week in the market.
Yeah, and for Leaderboard too, because I think there are 6 Leaderboard stocks set to report earnings. I'm not going to remember all of them, but there's ServiceNow. Mentioned Apple. That's on Leaderboard. Vertex Pharmaceuticals. There's a whole bunch of earnings reports.
Check out leaderboard.investors.com for that full list. And you can also reach out to us on social. Find our content there, as well as ask us questions on Twitter. Ken and I are both active there. You can also subscribe on Facebook and YouTube to watch our videos live. And we also have a presence on Instagram. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next week.
All right, Boyd.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Josh is raring to go.
Yes, raring to go. Paparazzi.
Pretending like he didn't know the show was over.
He's hanging on to every word.
And just noticing my blazer for the first time. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, we're good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Sweet.
Now that our salad eating is behind us, we're ready to take on the second